Hey, what's happening, guys? Today I'm going to show you how to prep, mix, and spray color-matched Raptor liner. So first things first, we're going to talk about surface prep. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I actually have another series of videos on how to prep a chassis for paint, and it's pretty much going to coincide with what you need to do to prep something for Raptor liner. So I'll have a link to that in the description, but the gist of it is what you're going to do is you're going to sand the surface with between 120 and 180 grit sandpaper, knock all the shine off of the surface. Anywhere that you can't get to with sandpaper and get good, adhesion to and get a nice coarse surface, you're going to spray it with adhesion promoter. So I use the adhesion promoter in this wheel well. I'm not sure how well this is going to come out, being that I'm pretty sure this is factory seam sealer, and I'm just going to try and pretty much spray over top of this. They use factory rubberized undercoat on this car to just make the rear fenders look black. So I'm going to go over top of it with Raptor liner. So I'll have a link down in the description to the other video where I kind of go over how to prep it, how to do any sort of rust mitigation that you may have, and ultimately what you need to do to get primer on the surface. So this is the 4-liter Raptor liner kit. This is the tintable. So we're going to go over how to mix in the paint as well as how to obviously spray the product. So as far as the Raptor liner itself, I have 4 1-liter bottles, and then it also comes with a hardener. So what you're going to do is you're going to dump out the hardener, fill it up to the fill line on the bottle that they give you, dump it in the container, shake up the Raptor liner. At that point, you can then spray it. Now, if you're using the tintable like I am, you also have to supply your own paint to tint the Raptor liner to the paint color that you want. As far as the paint, you have to have a solvent-based paint with no binders in it. If you go to automotive paint supply shop, they'll know what that means. I picked up a pint because I'm going to use about 3 ounces per liter, and I've got 4 liters here that I'm going to spray. So I'm going to use about 12 ounces on this particular job. As far as the gun, I ordered everything in one kit. So this does come with the gun. The gun, really not a whole lot to it. So put the straw in it. Put the nozzle. Put the nozzle in the end of the gun. And at that point, threads right into the bottle, and then you can spray. So really the only thing you need to supply is going to be your own paint and an air compressor. It all pretty much comes in a kit, pretty much ready to go. So I'm going to show you guys how to get this stuff mixed. There's not really a whole lot to it, but we'll go over how to mix it as well as how to spray it, and I'll go over all the settings for my gun, my air compressor, all that stuff, and I'll show you guys what this looks like when I'm done. To get the Raptor thoroughly mixed, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mix it in a separate container. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Raptor, open it up, and if you look down in there, it's actually white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump this in a separate container. And we're going to do all of our mixing outside the bottle. What this is going to do, it's just going to mix it better, basically. So what ends up happening, if you try to mix the paint inside the bottle, the stuff that's down in the bottom of the bottle really doesn't get mixed that well. And you'll get down toward the bottom of the bottle when you're spraying, and what ends up happening is you'll end up with basically white Raptor liner coming out, and if you're trying to shoot red, it'll come out pink. Or if you're trying to shoot black, it'll come out gray. So what we're going to do is shake up our paint, get our paint ready. In regards to paint, verify that your paint matches before you mix the Raptor. This completely screwed me. So I was going for an exact match on the chassis of this car to the outside of the car, and this paint, even though it's the same paint code, is nowhere near the same color. I really should have tinted it at the paint supplier to try and get a better match, but at this point it's at my house and it is what it is. Second thing is, if you're highly concerned about the match of your paint from bottle to bottle, you need to add it by weight, not by volume. That'll give you a more precise amount of paint in each bottle, and therefore the color between each bottle is going to be much more precise. So if you look at the paint job overall, it's not going to look blotchy. The paint color is going to be very consistent if you do it by weight as opposed to volume. I'm doing it by volume because it's the bottom of a car. Now that I have the paint in with the Raptor in the separate container, all I'm going to do is mix it up, get it thoroughly mixed, and then dump the tinted Raptor back in the original bottle. Okay, so I got all 4 bottles tinted, and it looks really good actually. So I don't know if you can see that, but it looks really close to the outside of what the car color is. So anyway, what I'm gonna do is at this point, I've got my gun, obviously ready to go. I'm ready to shoot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one bottle that I'm gonna shoot with, take the lid off, and I'm actually gonna just put the hardener in one bottle. So these 3 are ready to go. I'll add the hardener to this bottle, spray this particular bottle. Once this is empty, come back, add hardener to the next one, spray that one, and just go right down the chain. My thing is, if I just put hardener in every one of these, now all of a sudden I'm on a time crunch and I have to get all of these shot before they harden up in the bottle. So by doing it this way, you're alleviating some of the time stress a little bit, if you will. So what you're gonna do is you just take your hardener, and you're just gonna fill it to the line on the cup that they give you. Take that, dump it in the bottle, and there's gonna be like just enough room in the bottle to fit the extra paint, the Raptor liner, and then the hardener in there. It should go pretty much right to the top. Put the lid back on of the hardener and the bottle, and now you're gonna shake this for probably a couple minutes. So I'll get you guys repositioned while I'm shaking this, get you guys aimed at the bottom of the car, and once this is done, we're gonna start spraying. So taking a look here, this is what I'm gonna be spraying Raptor Liner on. So this is a chassis of essentially a Fox Body Mustang. Now, the reason I'm putting Raptor Liner on this is because Raptor Liner actually has a sort of like mild sound deadening capability to it. So by spraying this on the bottom of it, I'm hoping it'll make the car a little bit quieter and add, obviously a bunch of durability to the bottom of this car. As far as what I did to prep this thing, now there was some rust on here. I went over in another video how to spray this primer, how to mitigate the rust. I go over all of that in another series of videos, and I'll put a card in the corner, link in the description to that. So at this point, I'm ready to pretty much spray Raptor Liner over top of this primer that I have on here. Just a quick note about the primer that I have on here. It's made by a company called Master Coat, and it's actually bridge primer. This is their rust sealing bridge primer. It'll do 20 years on a bridge, so it should do pretty well on my car that sees rain 5 times a year. As far as spraying the Raptor Liner, the settings on my gun, the tip I just threaded about halfway in. I really didn't adjust it. I just put it in the middle and just let it go. As far as the air pressure that I'm using 50 PSI static air pressure. So I've got a regulator over on the wall, not on the gun, that was set at 50. So what it was when I was actually pulling the trigger, I couldn't tell you. The results that I got, as you guys will see, it came out fantastic. And there's a couple things that you guys need to be aware of if you've never done something like this before. First of all, anytime that you are pulling the trigger, the gun needs to be moving. The gun can't be stationary in one spot while the trigger is pulled. Otherwise, you're going to have a big blob and it's going to look like crap. So keep the gun moving. The second thing is the distance away from the metal. So as you can see, I'm between probably a foot and 18 inches away from the surface that I'm coating. That's much further than what it would be if you were using a traditional paint gun. This Raptor Liner gun is capable of throwing the product much further than a traditional paint gun. So if you try to get this gun super close to the surface, you're going to end up with tiger stripes because the amount of area that the gun will cover is going to be very, very small. It's going to be like a pinpoint. Well, if you pull the gun back and move the gun away from the surface, it'll cover a larger area with a thinner coat. That is what you want. If you go too close and apply too much product in too small of an area, you're going to end up with tiger stripes, where the coating actually looks striped. I'm by no means an expert at this, guys, but this stuff is extremely easy to work with. Like I said, I'm very happy with the way this car came out. Another thing you guys need to take note of is, personally, I would use thin coats. There's a bunch of these tutorials out there online where guys are painting the outside of their vehicles with this stuff, you know, painting bumpers with it, painting beds with it, doing all sorts of things with it. And one of the things that I've noticed is people tend to use too much of this product in one coat. So what I'm saying is people try to get all the coverage that they need out of one coat. It's just not realistic. If you put down multiple thin coats, it's going to dry quicker and it's going to look better. So what I did was I did 2 thin coats on this car, and I left like 15 minutes in between just for some of the solvent to kind of flash off and harden up. And it came out great, as you guys will see. Now, if this was a bed of a truck, yeah, I would continue to add more layers and more layers and more layers. But for the bottom of a car that's not going to see any real abrasive wear, it'll be perfectly fine. As far as the quantity that I used on the bottom of this car, I used 3 of the 4 liters. All right, so here's what we got. Take a look, guys. It looks fantastic. I'm super happy with the texture. It's not super coarse. I didn't want something super coarse that, you know, I was under here working on the car, and if a bolt slipped or a wrench slipped or something, I was gonna like cut myself on it. And it has a nice texture to it, but it's not, you know, overly aggressive. So I'm really, really happy with the way this turned out, guys. If I could change anything, maybe I wish it matched a little bit better. If you notice, it's a little dark compared to the outside of the car. Maybe it'll lighten up once it dries. I doubt it, but it's definitely not black, but I wouldn't say it's, you know, an exact match to the outside of the car. If anything, it's a little dark, but like I said, I'm super happy with the way this looks right now. What I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna wait about 45 minutes, and then I'm gonna start, you know, going around and pulling all this plastic and stuff down. If you let this stuff fully cure and then go to try to remove all your masking, it's going to make it a lot harder to do because, you know, the Raptor Liner obviously is so tough and so hard that it just makes it hard to pull the paper off without, you know, tearing the paper into a million pieces. So I'm going to do that in about 45 minutes, but overall, guys, initial impressions, I'm pretty ecstatic with this. So after a few days, once the Raptor Liner was fully cured, I went ahead and masked off the rear wheel wells on this car, and I sprayed the rear wheel wells with black Raptor Liner. As far as differences between the 2 products, really the only difference is it comes black, and all you have to do is add the hardener, mix in the hardener, and spray it. That's really the only difference between the black and the tintable. So it's been a few days. The Raptor Liner is fully dry. If you're going to use the Raptor Liner in a truck bed, they really say wait like 7 days for it to fully cure before you subject the truck to any sort of like heavy use. But as far as, you know, the feel of it, it was completely dry in 48 hours. It wasn't even remotely soft. If I could change anything, like I said earlier in the video, I wish my match was a little bit better. And I think the reason that the match isn't that great is because the paint match in that pint that I got that I used to dye the Raptor liner, I don't think the match in that paint was that close to what the outside of the car was. In hindsight, probably what I should have done is taken like a small part of the car with me to the paint supplier so they could tint it, because once I got the paint home, it is what it is. I have no way of tinting it here to make it, match exactly what it's supposed to be. At any rate, it still looks really, really good. I'm super happy with it. We'll see how it holds up. Time will tell, but being that it's on the bottom of an undercarriage, it's not going to be subjected to any sort of hard use, UV light or anything like that. So it should hold up fantastic. Guys, I'll have links down in the description to the Raptor liner, to the spray gun, to some of the other supplies you may need to get this stuff put on. As always, guys, if you guys like the video, hit like. You want to see more content, go down and hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.